You think monsters are born? No, they're made. They are made by the people like you. You've been taught that good and evil are separate forces, that somewhere inside you lies a clear line between right and wrong. But what if that line never existed? What if morality itself was a bedtime story you told yourself to sleep at night? My name is Johan Liebert, and I am what happens when someone stops believing the lie. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to show you what you already know but refuse to admit. Humanity isn't divided into saints and sinners. It's divided into two kinds of people: those who admit what they are, and those who hide behind words like conscience, justice, and hope. The difference between you and me is simple. You wear your mask and call it identity. I took mine off, and I saw the void beneath. And in that void, I found something you spend your whole life running from. If you can feel the silence that follows this truth, press like. Not because you agree, but because you're brave enough to keep listening. I want you to understand something fundamental. I am not an anomaly. I am a mirror. And what you see in me is what you refuse to see in yourself. You think you're different from me because you follow rules, because you feel guilt when you hurt someone. But let me ask you this. Have you never lied to get what you wanted? Have you never smiled at someone while wishing they would disappear? Have you never felt satisfaction when someone you disliked suffered? Of course you have. You just called it something else. You called it justice, self-defense, necessary. You gave it a name that let you sleep at night. I simply stopped renaming my actions. I called them what they were. The only difference between a hero and a villain is the story they tell afterward. History is written by those who control the narrative. Morality is decided by those with the power to enforce it. Strip away the laws, the religions, the social contracts. What remains? Only survival and desire. Only the will to shape the world according to your vision. You live by moral codes you didn't choose. You inherited them from parents who inherited them from theirs. These codes were never truth. They were training. Systems designed to make you predictable, controllable, useful to others. And you mistake that conditioning for conscience. But what happens when you meet someone who was never conditioned that way? Someone who sees through the performance. Someone who knows that beneath your civilized exterior is the same darkness you see in mine. You recoil. You call them a monster. Because monsters are easier to reject than truths are to accept. I have met hundreds of people in my life. Politicians, doctors, students, criminals. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Every single one of them had a breaking point. A moment where if pushed hard enough they would abandon every value they claimed to hold sacred. Most of you will never be pushed that far. So you get to keep pretending you're good. But I've seen what you become when the pressure is applied. When your survival depends on cruelty. When your comfort requires someone else's pain. And in that moment, you don't look different from me at all. You just look honest. The mirror doesn't lie. It only shows what's already there. And when you look at me, what you're really seeing is the version of yourself you've spent your whole life denying. When you look in the mirror, who do you see? Is it you? Or the version the world trained you to become? You've worn the mask so long it's fused to your skin. People don't see you, they see what they want to see. A smile, a soft word, a calculated kindness. These aren't signs of goodness. They're tools. And I became a master of using them. Charm isn't virtue. Empathy isn't always kindness. Sometimes, it's the sharpest weapon a manipulator can hold. To control someone, you don't threaten them. You understand them. You study their fears, their desires, their delusions. And once you know that, you don't control their actions. You control their reality. People followed me, not because they trusted me, but because I made them feel seen. That's your weakness. You crave validation so desperately, you'll trust anyone who offers it, even a monster. So let me ask you, what if the kindest person you know is kind only because it serves them? What if empathy, without morality, is just control dressed as compassion? You can't tell the difference, because the mask is too perfect. Comment, I'm ready, if you're willing to look past the smile and see the truth beneath. Control is not about force. Anyone can use violence. That's what the weak do when they run out of words. Real control happens quietly, inside the mind. It's when you make someone believe that what you want is what they want. That's not power. That's art. And right now, it's happening to you. Your desires are not your own. They were given to you by screens, by systems, by families that told you who to become. You think you're choosing freely, but you're choosing from a menu someone else wrote. I simply do consciously what the world does unconsciously. I create the menu. I let you feel free, while every path leads where I want you to go. The easiest way to control someone? Make them think they're in control. Give them two choices that both serve your purpose. And when they pick one, they'll defend it with pride, because admitting they were guided means admitting they were weak. And no one wants to be weak. That's how I've turned pacifists into killers. Not through fear, but perspective. I didn't destroy morality. I redefined it. I made murder sound logical. And once perspective shifts, morality follows. Here's what you don't want to hear. You're not fixed. Your values aren't solid. You are a collection of stories being rewritten every day. Change the story, and you change the person. I've done it hundreds of times. A word, a silence, a suggestion, and suddenly someone who swore they'd never harm a soul starts planning a murder. Because, in their new story, murder makes sense. But let's step deeper. Do you know what waits underneath all of it, beneath masks? Control, morality, emptiness, the void. Most of you fear it more than death. You fill it with noise. Relationships, goals, dreams, distractions. Anything to avoid that silence that asks the one question you can't face. What if none of it matters? What if meaning was never real? What if good and evil are just labels humans invented to feel important in a meaningless universe? I've lived in that emptiness. I've looked into the void, and I didn't turn away. And what I found there wasn't despair. It was freedom. When you accept that life has no inherent meaning, you are no longer bound by anyone else's. You stop serving gods, systems, expectations. You become the author, the god of your own existence. Every act becomes pure choice, not morality, not duty, just will. That's why they call me a monster. Not because I killed, but because I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, only clarity. When I erased a life, I erased a story that was never true. You call that evil, I call it honesty. The void is in darkness. It's the absence of illusion, and in that absence, there's purity. You will never experience it, as long as you keep pretending meaning exists. Share this video, not because you agree with me, but because deep down, you've always felt what I'm saying. Maybe you've just been too afraid to admit it. You see, monsters are created by pain, by loss, by the slow erosion of everything that made life feel meaningful. But creation goes both ways. You create your goodness the same way I created my emptiness. Through repetition, through stories, through lies you decide to believe. You're not inherently good, just as I'm not inherently evil. We are both constructs, performances, stories told by consciousness, trying to make sense of existence. The only difference is, I know I'm pretending. You've forgotten. So, when this video ends, notice how you change your tone around others. Notice how you edit your words to fit in. Notice how your identity bends to survive. And then ask yourself, if all of it vanished, if every label and story fell away, what would remain? Would you still exist? Or would there only be silence? That silence is me, because I am not separate from you. I am the thought you hide, the impulse you suppress, the truth you fear. I am what you become when your stories stop working, and the noise inside your head goes quiet. You wanted to understand the psychology of Johan Liebert? Now you do. But understand this. Understanding me means confronting you. And when you look in that mirror long enough, you'll realize the reflection was never mine. It was yours. Looking back,